Hey and welcome back to the channel. In this video we're gonna do something a little different, or it's actually not different at all, I just haven't done it before. We're gonna create a metal guitar tone using one of my favorite pieces of gear, the Line 6 Helix. I would like to mention before we dive into creating the actual tone that this tone is gonna be 100% stock cabinets, so there's no reason to go buy RRs somewhere. I know impulse responses is a big thing and there's a big culture out there right now with people arguing who makes the best impulse responses and what gets the best tone, but I just want to show that you can get excellent results just by using the stock cabinets in the Helix. And if maybe you are a beginner using the Helix, or you don't want to spend money on RRs just yet, or it feels overwhelming, this is a good place to start creating with what is already inside the box. So let's see what the tone sounds like in a mix. Alright, so let's dive into creating this tone. And first of all, I should say that I do not claim to have discovered or in any way being the inventor or founder of many of these techniques. I am probably like yourself, been dabbling in creating tones for a while, and the more and more YouTube you watch, the more awesome tricks you discover from very talented people. So going through when I use some of the techniques that I have learned from specific people, I really hope that I can remember their names and give them a shout out, because that is a good way, I feel, to pay back and pay respect where it's due, and I'm definitely all about that. And also I should say that I do not claim to be original in any way. This is a modern metal style tone, and it is inside a specific framework, and it needs to do certain things. So there are of course conventions that I also use, and tricks and tips that a lot of people use to make it sound like this. Alright, so now we have all of that stuff out of the way. Let's just dive in. And as you can see from the preset name probably, that this is another badunk tone, and it's just a great amp for this sort of sound. Firstly, I have the input gate. I have it on and I have it set to -48 dB, and that is actually fairly high, or a lot of gate for me, but using this guitar that I created this patch switch, for some reason it is super noisy and it's very hot pickups, so I needed to turn the gate up quite high, and I don't normally do that. So if you find that this preset eats your tone a lot, try playing around with the input gate a little bit. And I do like every other metal guitarist, I set decay to 10 milliseconds, or the fastest way, so you get that really clampy gate. Alright, so let's first dive to the amp, and right now I only have the amp and the two cabs on, and it sounds like this. So it actually sounds fairly alright. Of course there's a lot of work to be done, but as a ground source tone, I think this is actually quite good. So for the badunk amp, let's just run through the settings. The drive is at 4.7, the bass is at 4, the mid is at 7.1, but you could probably change it to 7. The treble is at 7.9, the presence is at 8.7. the channel volume is at 9.5 and the master is at default at 5. And you need to play around with these depending on your setup and what other presets that you are playing around with. If you need to match volume and stuff, this is a good place to play around with that, so you don't have to use a block on it. The depth is set to 1, and the sag bias as bias X is set to the default at 5, because I simply do not know what they do and I can't hear the difference. Alright, so we have a dual cap setup in this instance. And for all metal related tones, I always use the 4x12 XXL V30, which I assume is some sort of mesa cap. And the first cap here is mic'd with a 57, and the distance is 2, I guess this means inches. I'm not from the US, so I actually have no idea what an inch is in centimeters. Maybe you could tell me in the comments, that would be really great, so I can brag to my Danish friends. And this is also a very common trick, because in the second cap, I am miking it up with a 7 dynamic. I'm not quite sure what mic that is, and it's set really close, 1 inch, if we say the symbol means inches. And it picks up more of the low end, whereas the 57 picks up more of the high end. So if you put these together, you get this really massive sounding tone, right? And for some reason my ear landed on this 7 dynamic in this instance, but I have been using the 4038 or whatever you call that ribbon mic. It also does the trick fairly well. And I've seen people use all sorts of different mics. So if you find your tone a little bit stale, try to play around with the mic a little bit. And the rest of the settings are almost stuck. The only thing I did is I changed the high cut to 9.4 kilohertz on the second cap with the low end focused mic, right? And I didn't touch the rest. Okay. So it's very important for me, at least in the music that I play, to be able to play big chords with a lot of articulation and a lot of dynamics and stuff. So you'll notice that the tone right now is not so gainy. It is fairly high gain, but if I pick very softly, I would still be able to get a more overdriven sound. And I like to I play fairly hard, so I like to be able to hear that and control the dynamics of the guitar a bit. And also it's very important for me to be able to hear all the strings when playing big chords and stuff like that. So that is my sort of departure point, right? Okay, so we do another thing that every metal guitarist does. We put a Screamer 808 in front of the amp to push the tone a little bit, and this is very classic settings. Gain at 0, tone at 9 in this instance, and level at 10. So without. And with. So you can hear it really focuses the tone and pushes it and makes it a bit more in your face, which is what we want in this instance. Alright, so you can hear it's fairly tight because of the input gate is set so low, but we still get a little bit of noise. So in this instance, I don't always do this. I do it sometimes, but not always. I have a second noise gate here before the amp, which is set to 60, and the decay is clamping down as well, 10 milliseconds. So now we have this really, really tight tone, right? But we still maintain a fair bit of mounted sustain. And here it's still ringing. And around there it dies. And it's also important to not, it depends on the style of music you play, of course. If you want something super tight and hard gated, you should go for that if that's the sound you want. But I enjoy this more organic kind of sound and be able to have a little bit of feedback and stuff like that. Okay, so this next trick I learned from why can't I remember his name? I am so sorry, dude on YouTube. This is one of the most game-changing moves that I ever learned on YouTube, and I forgot the name of your channel. If I remember it at some point, I will put it on the screen or down in the description or something like that, because this is really, really great trick, and I really feel that I should pay the respects to the guy who taught me this move. But nevertheless, this is a simple EQ that I've put right in the beginning of the whole chain, or after the input gate, and the moves are fairly simple. low gain minus 2.6 dB, mid frequency is set to 1.3, mid gain is set to 0.8, plus 0.8, and the high gain is set to plus 1.2, and the level is set to 6.8. And what this does is that it gives the tone this really clangy and sort of string chime sound, which is super awesome. And let's try to hear it without. And hear it with, if I can hit it. So I hope you can hear the string chime because it's real. And it made a huge difference to me when I started creating metal tones. It just gives a lot more precision, and I really enjoy that sort of gritty sound from the strings. All right, so we move on, and I do a little bit of EQing, and So we move on to the end of the chain, and here all I do is I create a path to path 2A, so it goes down here, and if I do any additional EQing like I do in this tone and reverb and stuff like that, I tend to throw it down here because it's a little prettier, and it's just a little easier to control, right? So I do a few EQ moves down here, and this is the 10-band EQ, and all I do is I take the 1K and I boost it by 2.5, so plus 2.5 dB, and the 8K I boost by 2.2 dB. So again, without, and with these small changes here. So again, this is minor moves, but it just sort of clears up some muddy areas, or at least to my ears, at least. And then the final trick here I learned from the one and only Mr. Nick Hill, which is a Line 6 Helix guru by this point, at least to me he is. And this is, I actually just copied his settings, I think, because it's just such a great trick, and it just works every time for most tones at least. And this is a legacy reverb, so you go to legacy settings and you choose room, and then the decay is at 4.5, the pre-delay is 11 milliseconds, and I didn't touch the high or low cut, and the mix is set to 17% or something around there, right? And it just gives that sort of amp in the room and more sort of real sound to the tone, right? So you can hear again without, and with. So again, it's a very subtle move, but especially when you play in a rehearsal space or you play out of a PA or a studio monitor, stuff like that, it makes a huge difference. And also to the sort of feel of playing the guitar while you use this preset. So that is all for this little video. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope that you learned some useful tips from my approach to creating metal tones using the Line 6 Helix. If you would like to see more of this kind of stuff, creating different kinds of tone for different purposes, please let me know in the comments what you want, and I will see what I can do. Also, if you like this tone, I have of course put a link down in the description so you can go download it for completely free. Also, it would be pretty awesome if you would consider subscribing to the channel and like the video. It really helped me out. So that is all for this time. This was a lot of fun, so I hope to be able to do it again. Until next time, guys, see ya.